I think we can start with this conference. So I see participants coming in, currently at 1:34, but time is 9:45, so let's start with the EGI Conference 2020. And I want to welcome you all warmly to this conference. And as with almost all events this year, it's going to be an online meeting, but the program is as interesting as ever. Let's be optimistic. There may come times again that we can meet each other in person. And I certainly hope so. The previous conference was hosted in Amsterdam in May 2019. And that was the first one that I had the honor to open as your chairperson. And that conference celebrated 15 years of grid operations. But today there is another celebration, and that is that we celebrate 50 years of Tiziana. Yes, it's Tiziana's birthday. Congratulations, Tiziana, and a big virtual round of applause for you. Yeah, that sounds funny on an online conference, but I wanted to celebrate this moment anyway. So, many things have happened in this last 1.5 years. And let me start by stating that the EGI Federation is doing great. And of course, I'm biased, but let me explain why I believe this. First of all, the Federation is growing. We have new participants coming in. And 4 of these are research infrastructures: CDataNet, EasyNet, EMSO, and IceCut. And Tiziana will tell more about that in a moment. So CERN is not the only research infrastructure anymore in the EGI Council. That's good news. And what also makes me very happy is that Germany will return as full participant by next year. The second sign of why I think the EGI Federation is doing great is the success in many European projects. The EGI Foundation, in cooperation with its Federation partners, will grow to almost 40 people next year to carry out all these project tasks. And that's a tremendous success. And the third sign I see the success of EGI is that I perceive an enormous interest in Europe in the concept of federation as the basis for the European Open Science Cloud. I know of no other organization that has mastered the game of federating resources so successfully as EGI. And by the way, I see somebody asking, your slides are not moving. I do this the old-fashioned way. I have no slides. I just give this speech. So this explains why you can stare at your screen, but only see slides or me as a little person. So, EGI is doing great. Does this mean we can sit back, relax, and enjoy? No, not at all. I see 2 major interrelated uncertainties for EGI. And the first one is that we still do not know what the scope of the European Open Science Cloud will be. Will it be just implementing a web of fair data with a focus on data standards? Or will it an all-encompassing environment where data, computations, and services will float freely across borders? Well, the discussion on the scope of the EOSC will heavily influence the strategy for EGI. And the EGI Council later this week will have a first discussion on this based on an excellent analysis that is performed by our task force on governance and business models. The second uncertainty that I see is the positioning of EGI within the total context of e-infrastructure services. In the provisioning landscape, we see blurring borders. HTC, HPC data handling, processing and analysis above the net services, with as yet to be sorted out roles for publicly funded e-infrastructures and industrial cloud federation initiatives such as Gaia-X. We will hear more about Gaia-X also at tomorrow morning's keynote. And I believe that to address these uncertainties for EGI, it is very important that the national building blocks of the EGI Federation, the NGIs, are extremely well connected to and embedded in the national e-infrastructure contexts. In this national context is where I expect this integration of interests will take place and will then be further worked out on the European level, including EGI as we know it now. When I started as your EGI chairperson 2 years ago, I've expressed my thoughts on this in this direction. Well, I've experienced that in the past 2 years in practice, this has not been so easy to do. So there is still an awful lot of work to be done. So this is my introduction to the plenary session for this morning, which will be about the EGI strategy, which will be further elaborated upon by Tiziana. And I'm also very happy that we will have Liina Munari as speaker from the European Commission, following Tiziana, to highlight the choices that the Commission is going to make in the next framework program. So, with this introduction, I stop. And as I said, old-fashioned without slides. And I move to Tiziana. Tiziana, will you take the floor and start your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Arjen, for the nice introduction. And I hope you can hear me and also see the first housekeeping slide on the screen. Just a nod to me if everything is going well. Okay, so first I'd like to welcome everyone as well to this virtual event. We have been missing the opportunity to meet physically. We originally wanted to have this conference in Lyon back in June, then we were scheduled to Amsterdam at KIT. And unfortunately, we had to cancel our plans for shaking hands and meeting in person. However, we are really glad to have this conference at this point in time in this year, as a lot has been accomplished. And we hope that with this first introductory presentation, you will have at least a glimpse of what were the main achievements in the past months since the last conference. And you can also, in a way, have highlights of presentations and sessions that will follow in the coming days during the conference. Before I start my presentation, I will go through the traditional Zoom housekeeping rules. So keep your mic closed unless you're activated to speak. You're welcome to raise your hand for questions at the end of our two presentations. After Liina, you will be given an opportunity to present with questions, and then you will be able also to speak. All presentations will be also available on the agenda online, so they will be available for you to read after the conference. And remember about commenting and sharing your impressions about the event on Twitter. And we will look forward to a very interactive session even in this virtual format. It's indeed 50 years for me, so I think there's not a better way to celebrate. I joined the EGI Foundation back in 2010 with many colleagues, and I'm still enthusiastic about all the things we do together. It's a great honor, a responsibility to be director of the foundation after Stephen Newhouse and Yannick Legret. And I'm fully committed from this year to bring the EGI Federation to the next steps. The event will give you a lot of information, And I like to also point you to the closing plenary that we will have on Wednesday, when we will present the new flagship project that will bring the EGI Federation to its future roadmap. Every day, from Monday to Wednesday, we will start at 9 o'clock CET, closing at 5:30. And you will have an opening plenary every day, a closing plenary. And I like to also highlight an international workshop that we are having this year with CODATA and the Chinese Academy of Science on the Global Open Science Cloud Initiative, EOSC Synergy workshop on Thursday from 10 to 11:30. Your presence in these conference accounts. We have more than 130 registrants. This year we don't have an opportunity to share goodies with you, but what we have decided also to celebrate not just the 50 years of the director, but also the 10 years of the EGI Foundation. It was created in February 2010. We have agreed to give back to society. For every view, we will give back €10 to a charity that is a partner of the EGI in this event. This is a way for us at the foundation to thank all of you for your contribution, but also to thank all our participants and the scientific communities that have been contributing to the success of the EGI Federation in the past years. Last but not least, there is a fun event this afternoon. If you still have time to have a playful moment, we are missing the opportunity to shake hands, to talk about ourselves in small groups, but we will have a networking cocktail, a virtual one, at the end of today, with the opportunity of winning very nice presents and also having a very interesting presentation from the Royal Institute, Tropical Institute of Amsterdam, that we hope will be our venue next year. So with this, I'd like to start my presentation. It's a bit challenging to present in 30 minutes all that was achieved in the past months. My objective is to give you a feeling of what is the status of the Federation, of all the participants of EGI and our infrastructure, and what is the outlook for the coming years until 2024. The vision of EGI is to support every researcher in Europe and beyond to have a seamless access to services, resources, like scientific tools, applications, data, and the necessary expertise to be able to carry out the scientific collaborations at a global scale. And the mission given to the EGI Federation, where federation refers not just to the foundation, but to the whole system of our participants, the data centers in every country implementing our federation. Our mission is to deliver open solutions for advanced computing and data analytics to a growing community of scientists and innovators. We are proud to see that, as I will show in slides in a moment, that the infrastructure is growing thanks to the national investments that are coming from our partners, but also the interest and the need of scientific computing is growing. What is for us the greatest pride, and I think it's a pride for everyone, that from the data centers, from the scientific collaborations, from our council and executive board are working for EGI, to see the scientific impact of our initiative, which is estimated to exceed 2,000 open access publications every year. This is, I think, the reason of being for EGI, for our collaboration and for our daily work. The success of EGI is made thanks to the Federation through our members, and I will say in a moment what the membership is. They bring the capacity, the technology, the know-how, the technical innovation in the Federation, and without our members, EGI would not exist. But also the community at large, all the scientific collaborations, the research projects, which allow us to co-design and evolve the infrastructure together to meet new challenges and keep the infrastructure always current with the latest technologies. From 2021, we will have 26 members with a growing number of scientific collaborations joining as international communities. Germany will become a full participant from next year. And this is a great sign of the importance and value of Europe as a federated infrastructure to support the scientific collaborations that will not be possible without pooling the national fundings and the efforts and our knowledge as an integrated community. EGI has been enabling Nobel Prizes in physics, and the collaboration is not just limited to Europe. You know this very well. So with this, I'd like also to thank all the collaborations that we have with Open Science Grid in North America, Computer Canada in Canada, Latin America, Africa, and the Asia Pacific region, as EGI has been growing as an element of an integrated system of digital infrastructures. And it's thanks to this cooperation that these breaking discoveries are possible. The challenge of EGI and of the Foundation as coordinating body is to bring the priorities of our members, international research organizations like CERN, and more recently ESINUS, the infrastructure for climate modeling in Europe, and to bring also the national funding of our national members as the great pillars and the fundamental elements, building blocks of our federation. We wanted to welcome our new members. The three that will start or have already started as new member in 2020 are ESINUS, CDataNet, and Staki MTA Cloud. With these new organizations, we strengthen our collaborations with new European coordinated research communities. We have the opportunity to grow thanks to the integration of new services, new technologies, and evolve our way of doing federation. With ESINUS, the infrastructure for European Network for Earth System Modeling, we will have the opportunity to scale up their existing infrastructure made of HPC capacity, workflows, data metadata, models, and data analytics, and federate them, bringing also on-demand capacity to serve new user communities in Europe and beyond. We'll see DataNet, one of the largest European data infrastructures, bringing together data, scientific data for many different disciplines in the marine area. We aim at delivering a federated cloud infrastructure where CDataNet will be able to host their data analytics and provide the compute infrastructure that will integrate their research data. This is, I think, an excellent example of how scientific computing can and will evolve more and more with these research communities as a data-centric infrastructure where data will be integrally part of our computing facilities. This is the modern way of doing science, and we will do this thanks to these new members and collaborations. Finally, we are really proud to have Staki and MTA Cloud representing two organizations and initiatives from Hungary in our federation. Staki is a well-known partner of our community, established in 1964 as a Center of Excellence in IT in Hungary, is now leading a Hungarian alliance in cloud with Staki and the Wagner Data Center. With this collaboration and their membership, we will aim at integrating EGI platform and software as a service services of our portfolio and to make them available to Hungarian user communities. The Council of EGI has been looking forward, as said already by Arjen, and a new strategy was approved back in December. The new strategy brings new perspectives of doing scientific community and direction on what will be our priorities as a community and as EGI Foundation. So with the coming slides, I hope to give you let's say, a quick introduction on our strategic goals. We have 6 of them, and to already brief you on what were the main achievements in the last, let's say, 10 months of work in these 6 different domains. The first strategic goal is to be an infrastructure that can bring value to scientific collaborations and private entities for their research activities and pre-market work on computing. We've been promoting the engagement with user communities, and we have been very happy to see how, also thanks to the collaboration with many S3 cluster projects, the number of research infrastructures supported by the Federation has been growing. These 2 diagrams show the trends that you will see also in the accounting portal of EGI. On the left, the trend since 2009 in high throughput computing demand across Europe and beyond, across the whole Federation. And on your right, the trend in using cloud capacity federated through EGI at pan-European level. The last year was tremendous in terms of growing demand, and this was thanks to a number of research collaborations that are either increasing the luminosity of their experimental facilities or are already ready to start their operational activities on the Federation. So this is a thanks to the commitment of the data centers, to the national investments of our participants, and to the user communities that are bringing European science to the next step. We recorded a plus 24% increase in the high throughput computing infrastructure with CERN, INFN, and the UK RI and NGIDE to be the organizations bringing and pooling the largest capacity, which is being used in EGI. And similarly, and even more for the cloud, thanks also to a number of key projects in the European Open Science Cloud Initiative, we saw an increase of 80% in the last 12 months, where Ibergrid, again, INFN, Metacentrum in the Czech Republic, and France Grill in France are leading as key providers of computer services. The user communities we serve, and in this diagram you see a distribution, are distributed across different disciplines. Physics are the largest in terms of utilization, but health and medicine are the largest in terms of user communities served. 45.5% of users are in the latter sector, followed by high energy physics and environmental sciences, who are the most active adopters of federated cloud services in Europe. The second strategic goal is to be able to evolve hand in hand with our scientific collaboration. This means enabling the infrastructure to evolve with their requirements, but also to be open to innovate our infrastructure with the ambition of supporting more and more new user communities. To give you an idea, we always speak about production readiness, maturity of the infrastructure, but we should not forget that one of the values and the largest values of the Federation is to ensure that scientific applications can use existing technical solutions that have already been developed and deployed in full production in the EGI Federation. As you can see here on the left, many communities we work with are either in design, co-design phase or piloting, and this is a great value proposition. It's not just about infrastructure and services, but it's also about the pooling expertise across our national members and international organizations to serve a growing number of user communities. Innovation is enabled through projects, and we are very glad to see that this portfolio of community projects is growing over time. This is again an indication that scientific computing is growingly an enabler and necessary component of every scientific discipline in conducting their science. This diagram shows the diversity of the projects that the EGI Foundation, with many of you, is conducting. What I'd like to highlight is that We have projects which are targeting scientific disciplines, in particular health and medicine, photon and neutron sciences, and social sciences, but also dedicated activities towards new sectors. First of all, energy and manufacturing that are looking at EGI to learn from the experience in doing data-intensive analysis in a federated manner, but also Earth observation and policy management, which is the data-driven, and we have quite a few projects in this domain. So as you can appreciate, the demand of scientific computing and data-driven computing is now expanding to the traditional sectors where energy physics, astronomy, and astrophysics have been really innovating and have been the pioneers. And now this methodology and architecture is being adopted in more and more new domains and scientific communities. We are facing challenges because of COVID, and obviously it was also our duty to give back to scientific applications and communities that are fully engaged in the last months in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. In the past months, we opened a call for projects that would benefit for computing. We have selected 3 that have already been able to publish. One I like to mention is in collaboration with the Ruđer Bošković Institute in Croatia, dealing with multi-target docking and simulation services. The second project in Italy for genetics and analysis in livestock to learn on how living bodies protect themselves from COVID-19 virus, and a well-known collaboration with the WNMR community, which has been jointly supported by WSG and the Open Science Grid in the United States. We have united our efforts in pooling increasing capacity for docking simulation, and this resulted in more than 11,000 simulations for a total amount of about 3 million CPU hours that have benefited international researchers from everywhere in the world. This is our way to do open science, and this is thanks to these scientific communities and their applications. This diagram shows how e-infrastructures like EGI have a mandate and also, let's say, a mission, a duty in being able to change their priorities in resource allocation when general challenges are being faced by our society. And these 2 diagrams I'd like to show you the number of users, indicate how many new individual scientists with WNMR have been able to conduct their research thanks to the repurposing and allocation of increased capacity across continents, which is, I think, amazing. Moving to the third strategic goal, I like to say what the EGI Federation has been achieving in order to improve the skills and the readiness of users and operators across our data centers. And here, the largest enabler has been EUSCAB. This project has been devoted a tremendous effort in user support and integration. And it's a very concrete project, a bottom-up project that started by federating compute, data management services of UDAT and solutions of Indigo to support new user communities with 9 thematic services, many of these that benefited from the EGI Federation capacity, 8 competence centers for research infrastructures, and 13 early adopter pilots that were just engaged in the second part of the project. This is the heritage of EUSCAB that we hope to continue in the future, which underlines how important user support, coordinated efforts across countries and scientific communities are increasingly important to retain excellence in science in Europe. The fourth strategic goal is about aligning our business models. One of the greatest difficulties that all federated infrastructures in Europe face is the ability to enable cross-border access to unique capacity, services, and data. This is the challenge of Europe, and it's also our mission to tackle that. Our strategy is demanding our federation to improve the way we can provide cross-border access to our services. And one concrete direction that we're taking is to complement the traditional distributed access, which goes through our providers, where EGI.eu provides federating services, and where scientific collaborations are engaged bottom-up through the data centers with which they have the collaboration agreements. We are moving and complementing this model towards a central access, where the EGI Foundation is the proxy of our members and coordinates the participation of our federation members to support user communities that are looking at EGI to have the distributed computing that is not available at scale in-house. Besides these international collaborations that I want to mention, because these are the huge pillars in our federation, like WSG, Bell2, LIGO and Virgo, LSST, ILC, IceCube, CTA, and Dune, and this is just a very small list looking at accounting figures. I like to mention 32 service level agreements, which are exactly targeted for communities that are not resourced in-house. One concrete example is NextGeos, a project that delivers Earth observation data for evidence-based monitoring and policy making. The EGI Federation enabled 14 pilots, supported 8 core services of NextGeos, delivering more than 3.6 million CPU hours with providers from different regions of Europe. Finally, and moving into the governance part, our objective is to strengthen our membership and also to increase our collaborations internationally. I've mentioned before already how important international communities are to enable cross-border science, and all these communities that you see here have in different ways and degrees involved Europe, United States, Latin America, Africa, and Asia Pacific regions. One of our objectives is to consolidate these collaborations, and besides the membership that we have already presented, the other dimension and strategy is to increase our partnership with the United States, with China, South Africa, and also with the eastern area of Europe. I like to highlight collaboration agreements that we have recently signed with Grena and Renan, respectively in Georgia and Moldova, in order to share experiences on federation and pooling our capacities in a European federated cloud. But I'd like also to mention the collaborations with the Shanghai Science and Technology Innovation Resource Center, with CNIC, which is the IT center of the Chinese Academy of Science, and also new collaborations with Open Science Grid. We have renewed our MOU just a few months ago. Towards research communities, we are strengthening the collaborations with South Africa with our obvious and very strong focus on physics and in particular radio astronomy. We are updating the collaboration agreement with WSG, which we aim to finish in a few months from now. And we are also strengthening our technical partnerships with commercial sector. I'd like to mention T-Systems. The CTO of T-System will present Gaia X just tomorrow in the opening plenary. Our collaboration is about sharing experiences in cloud federations for implementing a hybrid cloud platform for Europe. Terra2, who is an important commercial player and partner of ESA for provisioning of thematic services for Earth observation and PSNC. These collaborations are a foundation and our strong asset into the European Open Science Cloud. We have been collaborating and contributing to EOSC since 2016. We have been working with UDAT and Indigo with EOSC Hub, and new achievements have been possible thanks to these projects and also to national projects of the European Open Science Cloud. For those who are familiar with the architecture of EOSC, which is divided into core services for the Federation of EOSC, data, and the EOSC exchange with thematic services, compute and storage. We are proud to say that with EOSC Hub and EOSC Enhance, we have been contributing to key components of the core, like AAI, the EOSC portal development and operations, but also monitoring, messaging, the help desk, security coordination, and integrated management of the services in the Federation. These are the excellence of the EGI Federation, an area which has been in our DNA from its creation and its start of operations back in 2004. The opportunity and interest of EOSC is to be able to repurpose these technologies to the needs of EOSC, and this has already been a long-term activity in the last 3 years with EOSC Hub. All the thematic services that are coming from our scientific communities that are being integrated with the federated cloud or federated HTC infrastructure are becoming operational pillars of EOSC exchange. And all of this is also thanks to national projects that are being led by many members of our community, which complement the national strategies with European activities coordinated by the EGI Foundation. I like to bring you first some information about the next flagship project of EGI, which is called EGI ACE. It's a nice acronym which actually stands for Advanced Computing for EOSC. The main and key objective of this project from 2021 and 2023 is to provide a centrally coordinated but distributed platform of cloud, high-throughput computing and high-performance computing capacity that will implement the infrastructure layer of the computer platform of EOSC. With these strong pillars that leverage national capacities, we are aiming to create a hosting space for research data of public interest and for fundamental research in different sectors. And we're aiming to integrate this computer platform with the EOSC core that will continue in its development and operations with a new project after EOSC Hub, which is called EOSC Future. The first objective is to complement the European efforts with a global effort in linking internationally. And we're doing this with the United States, with Africa, and with the Asia Pacific region. And finally, is to also support access to resources across different sectors and to collaborate with commercial entities, finding synergies with federated initiatives, cloud initiatives for industry and SMEs. We have 33 partners in the consortium, and altogether we're building a service portfolio for EOSC, which is very close to the EGI portfolio, but also expanding our ability to serve communities that have on-demand needs and want on-demand computing and storage. We will federate research clouds, public clouds, high-throughput computing centers, and HPC capacities. And all of these will become the resource tier for data and scientific applications. We have decided to prioritize applications that will contribute to the Green Deal data strategy and the health data strategy, together with a number of fundamental disciplines that will allow us to continue our historical support to fundamental science. This diagram shows the diversity of the providers, the hosting nodes, the platform operators, the federated access operators, and the data spaces coming from our thematic communities. So we are very proud to have an excellent consortium, very diverse, that will push EGI into becoming a pillar and a very strong building block of the European Open Science Cloud. To learn more, just stay tuned and be with us for the closing plenary, where you will have dedicated presentations on EGI ACE, but also the follow-on project of EOSC Hub, which is called EOSC Future. I'd like to conclude my presentation with a few words about what have been our achievements in the past months, and as a summary, to remind everyone that 2020 has been an excellent year for innovation and growth. with new user communities being integrated and trained, more than 71,000 users registered and actively using the Federation. We have the ability to serve more and more user communities that approach EGI for on-demand access to our services. Our next challenge and interest is to develop, further strengthen our ability to train and support user communities with a distributed network of supported teams from our participants. This will be possible by having these community projects that bring expertise from our members into those consortia. We will continue, of course, our commitment to contribute to the EOSC development, to the core, through the computer platform, and through a portfolio of projects that will enable this new vision and priority of the European Open Science Cloud. Why EOSC is important for EGI, to conclude with a final remark, because EOSC is the umbrella where infrastructures are asked to come together to support European and international research communities. It's an opportunity for integration and growth at national level for our NGIs and for the whole Federation at European level. So with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and we will take questions at the end of the presentation from Liina Munari, the European Commission. So I look forward to any question that you will have just in a few minutes from now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiziana. And indeed, 15 years of grid operations, 10 years of EGI, 50 years of Tiziana. It's a lot of reasons to celebrate. Meanwhile, I see that Liina is preparing herself to give her presentation, and indeed we will have questions to both of the speakers when Liina has finished her presentation. Liina, I see your wonderful Finnish background.
Yes.
Please share your presentation. We still see the gray blocks that we discussed this morning.
Yeah, don't worry. Yes.
But you will remove them.
Okay. Yes, just a second. I might have to stop for a second. Good morning from everybody, to everybody from me as well. I will. Okay, just a second. All right, like I need to hide something here, and I need to hide something else. And at this moment, you should not see any more the gray blocks. Is that correct?
No, they can't.
Wait, here.
They still
Okay.
can't.
Just a second. Okay. At this point.
Well, it looks.
Are we clear?
It looks like it works. Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, good morning to everybody from my side as well. As you see in the program, originally it was supposed to be my new head of unit, Grazina Piswich, who was going to address this audience, also for you to get to know her. But unfortunately, she was unable to do the presentation, so you will have your good old Liina presenting this moment actually from central Finland. I'm here on holidays with my daughter, so that's why you see the rather stormy background. Just let me know if you see trees falling on me, so start screaming, please, at that moment. So I was invited to give you a little overview of this of what is in the sort of making for e-infrastructures in the future. As you know, we're all very much preparing for the next period. The Horizon 2020, for our part, has sort of come to an end in a sense that we have finalized the last call. But of course, the current projects that have been funded from this program will continue still for many years, including the EOSC future, which is currently under negotiation for the next period to continue the legacy of EOSC Hub and the other projects that have contributed so far to building the European Open Science Cloud. So as said, my name is Liina Munari. I'm the deputy head of the unit Connect C1 at the unit E-Infrastructures and Science Cloud. And I would like to start just reminding you, we've seen this obviously very many times. The current commission, it has 6 main priorities and obviously cutting across all the DGs of the commission. European Green Deal, Europe Fit for the Digital Age, Stronger Europe in the World, Economy that Works for People, Promoting Our European Way of Life, a New Push for European Democracy. So you see that we got everything from green to democracy, and that's rightly so, because Commission is very active in all these fields. Clearly, there are certain of these priorities that are more relevant for DG Connect. And there are certain priorities that are more relevant for the e-infrastructures and the area where we are operating. Our unit is currently preparing a major initiative called Destination Earth. You probably heard of it, to sort of build a digital replica of the Earth, but all with socioeconomic sort of modeling and prediction tools as well. So that's why the European Green Deal is very important for us from the infrastructures perspective as well. Not only for that, but this is a new addition. And then, of course, the Europe Fit for Digital Age. You can already make your own conclusions why this might be relevant for infrastructures, as well as particularly your economy that works for people, because of course at the end of the day, well, we're here for about research, but at the end of the day we're delivering something for the economy and particularly the society as such, not only the economy but indirectly for when we are improving the way to how to do science with digital tools. So, okay, if you want to go down to the level of different strategies, you know that we always have, of course, these sort of markers, these lighthouses that are actually guiding a little bit our life towards these more finely defined goals. Then there's the digital strategy that was adopted in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. There are linked strategies that are very central for the DG Connect industrial policy strategy, the European Green Deal, of course, the European HPC strategy, and the data strategy. I don't go through all these because I would like to more focus, well, just say a few words about the data strategy itself. The idea of the data strategy, of course, is to have a single market for data when the data can flow within the EU and across the sectors for the benefits of all. Based on European rules, very important, and a particular privacy and data protection relevant, as well as obviously the competition rule. So to say the European rule of law is fully respected. And that the rules for access and use of data is fair, practical, and clear. We are obviously not the only unit. There are many units at the Commission at DG Connect working in this, both on the regulatory perspective, but also from the implementation perspective. The creation of common European data spaces, that is, of course, you've heard of it. You know, there are these data spaces where EOSC is mentioned as well, sort of a horizontal data space supporting the others. But I would go rather not too much into detail into that. I would like to probably focus on more what we're going to deliver in terms of EOSC, and I will give some hints on what are the ideas of linking it in the future with the other data space, because they're all very different. As you know, there are the health data space, but there's also the transport. There's different kind of data spaces that are the data is coming from very different sources. So the idea is to cover data processing, computing, and interconnection of existing computing capacities at national European level, including HPC. This rather unreadable slide, you'll have all the access to this slide, so if you want to look more in detail, but it's actually quite useful because it really shows the timeline of, let's say, from 2015 onwards, from the sort of onset of EOSC discussions, or maybe a little bit earlier, but okay, now we're in 2020. So if you look 5 years back, these are the projects that we have been funding that have all, in one way or another, been contributing to EOSC, because they've been funded from these calls that have been launched under the Infra EOSC umbrella. There are several other projects that might not be here, you know, and maybe not all the projects are so central to the current making of EOSC, but I would just like to show you a little bit. It's actually courtesy of my colleagues at the DG RTD who have produced this slide to show that where we are now, we are in 2020. You see that many projects are coming to an end, but very many projects are actually also right in the middle of their delivery, and there are certain projects which are not in here yet because they're the ones that are coming from the previous call that we just closed in a few months ago, or the results were given out, the InfraEOSC 03 and the InfraEOSC 07 calls, which are not yet in this table because they are not yet projects that are being signed, but you see that the legacy goes even further than this table shows. So this is, of course, to give you a little bit of an overview of what will go on until 2023 with the new projects coming in, or probably even, yeah, no, I think 2023 is probably, well, 2023, beginning of 24, of how this legacy from Horizon 2020 will continue. I know that not many of you are, or well, not all of you are familiar with the EOSC governance. It's a complicated enterprise, like many strategic initiatives are, especially of this level. So I would just like to sort of give you a couple of pointers. You've probably heard of the famous SRIA, Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. Why is it there? It's there because the next stage of EOSC implementation as of 2020, this was a political process which was already set up a few years ago when the Council of Ministers adopted the conclusions on EOSC and how it should go forward. So to put things in a small nutshell, the Council of Ministers of the EU decided that that for the remaining period of Horizon Europe, so to say, the 2019 and 2020, there would be an interim governance who would prepare the ground for the EOSC EOSC next second stage that would start in 2021. Because of course, when all this was set up, we had a bunch of projects doing good work, but not necessarily we didn't have yet the governance structure in place. And of course, this sort of needed to be prepared. So that all said, as you see there on the top, you say interim EOSC governance has been busy not only for 2020, but 2019 onwards. But this is the timeline of how this EOSC governance, which has now applied to become a partner. You know, there are these partnerships that can be proposed to the Commission for a sort of a structured stakeholder community to enter into an agreement with the Commission so that they could, through a strategic research and innovation agenda, guide the future funding decisions and the policy and strategy decisions of the Commission to be more closely tied, so to say, and have a bit more structured dialogue. There are different ways of doing this. As you know, for example, EuroHPC is a formal enterprise between the Commission and the member states who are contributing to it. That is the most sort of formal way of doing this kind of partnering. Whilst for EOSC, we have decided to go for sort of maybe the least formal way, which is called the co-program partnership, which is meaning that we co-program. So we're looking at the programming activities together, but it's not a formal agreement that we, for example, would all put money into one pot and would jointly decide how to use it. We keep on funding activities from Horizon Europe as we've been doing until now, but of course with the major input coming from the stakeholder community, which is now coming into making through EOSC partnership. The partnership is the formal agreement, but the partnership is signed between an entity and the European Commission, and that partnership will be signed with the newly established EOSC Association. And I think that many of you or your organizations have probably already signed. So this is a little bit the sort of the contractual or procedural background to this next stage of EOSC governance and this three strategic research and innovation agenda, which has been in preparation. This slide is very detailed, also to understand, because we are sort of we have a formal timetable to draft the work program, which is not necessarily exactly the same as is the timetable agreed by the EOSC governance to draft the strategic research and innovation agenda, because they have to deliver it by the end of the year. More or less the same time, of course, we will deliver the next work program, and of course we are always a little bit ahead. So we are doing our utmost, us and the colleagues at the DGRTD, who are both counterparts in this EOSC implementation with us, to really follow well, with as closely as we can the development of the strategic research and innovation agenda by the current EOSC governance, and to integrate those parts to the work program that are highlighted. So as you see now, okay, there's a red line there at the version 0.8 of this current strategic research and innovation agenda. You can all find it, by the way, online. You just have to Google if you don't know where to go. Otherwise, the strategic research and innovation agenda of EOSC, and you will just fall into it, and you can download it, and you can find the version 0.8 that was published just a few days ago. And just to show you how it will be in the final version, will be coming in about 2 months' time. The version 0.8 is already sort of 80% complete. And all these outcomes of the consultation that were they were already provided into the 0.8 version. So just, and then one final remark: the work doesn't end there. So the whole idea is that this strategic research and innovation agenda will become as a part of this memorandum of understanding, which is really the formal contract for the partnership between the Commission and the EOSC Association, representing the community. And that TRIA would continue to be revised, obviously, over the years, so that, you know, it will be updated. It's not set that it's set to stone for the next 7 years, and this is what will happen. So this is the whole idea of this continuous dialogue. So what I said, like the Commission will continue to fund its own activities, or the activities, through the Horizon Europe. But of course, the partnership means that also there are in-kind contributions from the member states and from the partners. So this is very important to realize, that the strategic research and innovation agenda, it's not only about what will be in the next work program of the Commission over the 7 years. It aims to deliver and leverage on all investments related to EOSC, also from the member states, and that's why those strategic priorities in that document are very important, because it doesn't only highlight what the Commission would do, but it also highlights how the member states and the other partners would contribute to this delivering this. I don't go too much into detail into the strategic objectives of this TRIA. You can all read it yourself. In principle, there are 3 strategic objectives. One is open science practices and skills are rewarded and taught, becoming the new normal. That's work that's been ongoing. Open science principles are already quite widely embedded in Horizon Europe, but of course also the stakeholders on the other side have to be complying to it. The second strategic objective on sustainable and federated infrastructure, where within the scope of which would be the famous EOSC core, as Tiziana was explaining, the federated data infrastructures and the EOSC exchange, which is now the name that has been sort of rebaptized. We used to, in EOSC Hub project, it was called the EOSC Marketplace, but now it's called the EOSC Exchange. This is just to highlight the sort of the structure which is in line with this of what we've been doing, and it will be also continued. And the third strategic objective would be the standards, tools, and services that allow researchers to find, access, reuse, and combine the results. So the scope is turning fair and open principles into practice, but also obviously to continue the work in all areas of this standardization, interoperability of tools and services. There are some implementation challenges that have been identified in this RIA. They are identifiers, metadata ontologies, fair metrics, AI, the user environments as large, resource provider environments, and then the interoperability framework. And there are some boundary conditions that are rules of participation, how the landscape is monitored, the business models, skills and training, rewards and recognition, and communication, and widening to public and private sectors. So see, there's a demissing there. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, why do I want to go through this is because I wanted to highlight a little bit how this process has contributed already to the current work program that we are preparing for 2021-2022. So those who have had access to this document, the Commission doesn't formally share these intermediate versions, but I believe that as a good West practice is that the members of the Research Infrastructures Committee, who still remains the one who will decide at the end what is the final shape of the work program. The partnership and the EOSC Association are providing input, but the final decisions are still made in the Research Infrastructures Committee. So, as you've seen in this document, there is not necessarily anymore, as it was in the past, a specific section on infrastructures. That's not really a reason to concern, because if you start reading the document, you see that many of the same things or similar things are of course continued, maybe under slightly different headings, and maybe also to highlight the fact that that the research infrastructures are one. I mean, of course, we know that the infrastructures and research infrastructures, they exist and they serve certain different purposes, but we would like to sort of highlight as well that under the EOSC umbrella, they are both finding their home, so that we don't need to make such a drastic distinction between them anymore in the work program either. So as you've probably heard, the new vocabulary of the Horizon Europe is about destinations. We have several destinations, which are the sort of main blocks of where the work will be funded. The first one will be the well-functioning European research infrastructure landscape. So that's continuing the research infrastructure support that's been done in the past. The second one, destination 2, is enabling an operational, open and fair EOSC ecosystem. So this is where most of the activities on EOSC will be funded. There is a third one, destination called Research Infrastructure Services to support health research, accelerate the green and digital transformation, and advance frontier knowledge. You know, the green and digital clearly, especially in the post-COVID world, are the two key priorities of this commission. So these are the sort of the twin objective that Ms. von der Leyen, head of the commission, the president of the commission, is highlighting. So these are the research infrastructure services to be funded are also in line with those priorities. We have a fourth destination, which is the next generation of scientific instruments, tools and methods and advanced digital solutions. Then last but not least is the network connectivity enable for collaboration without boundaries. So this would continue the current GEAN operations in Europe and outside Europe, and also the service provision coming from there. So the instruments that we are aiming are calls for research research and innovation actions, coordination and support actions. We are introducing a major element in procurement, and then the GEAN activities would be continued through the FGA, sort of framework partnership agreement and the special grant agreements that would continue. So why do I say major part in procurement? Because we are aiming to widely procure after the Infra EOSC 03 project, EOSC Future, is coming to an end, to actually move from research and innovation action type of funding, which are grants, as you know, to direct procurement, because we consider that at that point, if we only look at the major projects that we have funded, you saw the whole list of EOS contributing projects, but the two key flagships, which being EOS Hub and now EOS Future, we have invested 70 million euros into this activity, and we consider that at that point there should be sort of mature enough in order to go for a direct procurement, in order to have a really professional sort of industry level platform that would be the next sort of stage of how to deliver EOS. Will continue. So, but just to make you understand that the destination 2 will have the calls as is, but how the work program is structured, this procurement would be part of other calls not subject to grants, because it's procurement, so it's going to be physically in another section of the work program. So what we talk about then when we talk about this EOS platform, so we would aim for delivering the EOS core infrastructure and services through providing an operational secured cloud-based EOS infrastructure, which would offer the professional services and give a superior user experience for a very large number of users with the functionalities available 24/7. So EOS for your dreams, so to say, if you want to. This is to highlight that, of course, we continue the same method of implementing this. It is up, obviously, to when you go down to level of individual implementers of first EOS Zero project, which will then build on to this platform, but also the future, you know, what is the current thinking at that moment when we start drafting the tender specification, which is a closed process, by the way, for the Commission, in order to ensure the integrity of the process. So at that moment, we'll see how much of needs to be remain sort of as an integrated service, as a core, or how much it will be federated. The main idea is to federate everything. That's been the Council of Ministers guideline from the beginning, not to create a sort of one big monster that everything would be under that. In Europe, we know that it's not necessarily the best way to go, but we will need to see which are, for example, those services that that would be worth providing at the European level, rather than procuring them or providing them at national one. But this is just to explain you that we have not finalized our thinking completely on this procurement. We're actually starting it. The first reactions from the Member States Research Infrastructures Committee has been very positive towards it, and then this discussion on which direction will it shape will continue over the next year at least. So in this core infrastructure, we would of course provide innovative, modular, customizable, composable services. So the services would not be, of course, provided by the tenderer, but it would be, this is the infrastructure that it would actually, the infrastructure would support these functionalities. The third main sort of key element is the data and service community will be aligned in terms of standards and subdomain, domain, and interdisciplinary levels. You know that this is easily said, but more difficult to do. Established link with European data spaces, the European Cloud Federation, EuroHPC, Member States Initiatives on Federated Data Infrastructures. You know, all these things are happening at the same time, and we would aim to see then to what extent we can actually start providing these links through this platform. You know, all these are separate initiatives at the moment. It's very difficult to put them all under one umbrella, but as we know, maybe the interoperability and then the sort of framework conditions are going to be pretty much the same for all these, so that everything is open and interoperable and based also on fair data and then fair services. And then, okay, so the main implementing principles would be infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service modalities to remain flexible and modular, and to provide also the ways for the community to build their own services on basis of it. So the main features, public procurement, we would probably procure it directly. We're not really sure actually how we're going to do it, whether it would be direct procurement from the Commission. Why do we want to do it through procurement? It's because through a grant, the IPR would remain with the consortium. So at this point, we think that the IPR should be with the entire EU, with the member states, and not only with the single set of consortium. So this is one of the main reasons as well where we think that the public procurement would be the best way to go. Of course, the Commission would not operate it on its own, and we would then need to understand, what kind of entity would operate this platform at the end. We want to build on the results of the Infra 03 to ensure continuity, which of course then already builds on the previous projects. So there is this legacy of continuum of legacy. And all this would be delivered in close collaboration with the EOSC Association, the community under EOSC program partnership, and representatives of the member states involved in the governance of EOSC, because they are not direct members of the association, because member states cannot be members of an ASBL type of association. But they are very closely related to it, to their mandated members, and also to the co-program, to the steering committee of the EOSC sort of tripartite partnership. And so all this would be prepared to the extent before we start drafting the tender specifications. We would leverage on this collaboration, plus also the tender would need to, of course, very close cooperation with these stakeholders to develop the platform. I would like to just to finalize to say that we have in the next work program, there will be also a service call for new innovative services. So that will be a normal RIA call. You know that in the past, what we've done, we sort of alternated between more mature services, like we did in 07, sort of to provide the access to this. And then we have had these calls that be more prototypic service development. And this is now again why we have added those projects are now coming to an end. At the end of this year. So we are introducing this call again for the new innovative services in the work program 2021. And then the subsequent work programs would then again take into account the access provision, as we've seen for the mature services, and maybe many of the ones that have been funded in the last round could be already provided then at the moment as mature services. So the next steps, Horizon Europe, the option is still pending. We will hope, this is the political process, but it will happen sooner or later, end of this year, beginning of next. The next Research Infrastructure Committee meets in November with the next version of the work program that has been already presented to them. They are now due to give us their comments on it. The work program should be adopted in 2021. Final, but obviously at certain moment its contents will be frozen, but it will be developed over there, until I think the formal adoption is only 2021. And the first calls would then be expected to be launched in spring 2021, or actually, to be honest, might be that they have to go because of the slightly delayed adoption process. Might be that we have first calls coming only in September, but that's not decided yet. So I see I'm running a little bit over time. I don't know if it's me or if it's the startup hiccup, but anyway, I'm coming to an end of this presentation. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'm really happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Liina. And indeed, formally, we have now 2 minutes before it's I think we should allow for indeed a couple of questions. On the chat, at least, there is a lot of discussion on the relation between HTC and HPC, because it seems like this is disconnected in the work program. HPC is in Digital Europe, HTC as we know it, the other form of computing is in the EOSC. Do you have any comments on that, Liina?
Yeah, I mean, yes, as you see, probably, okay, if you see in the work program, there isn't really anything specific on HTC. Okay, you can see the work version that you've probably seen. There wasn't yet the service call in it. So of course, that could be one part of it. Obviously, those are new innovative services, so the TRL is lower than would be for a mature service. HTC, on one hand, I mean, as we said, the whole of this platform, it will need to provide, as Tiziana was also explaining, what is the key competencies of EGI, providing cloud, providing HTC, and then of course through HPC. So we are putting a lot of highlight on HPC because we have these wonderful resources in Europe, but HTC of course serves another purpose. So it's not to say that HTC is not included. I mean, it depends a little bit, you know, when we go further down and in preparing for the tender, for the how these kind of services will be provided. All kind of services can still be provided through this, and we'll see then also to what extent we can also support the further provision of HTC in the future. But this is not to say that since they're not there now, they will not be there forever, and they will not be there ever. So just to frame a little bit the discussion on HTC.
Okay.
And I can see the comments from many research, small research, HTC methods often preferable, etc., etc. So it's as I say, you know, it's you know, not, there's no one size fits all. So we have to provide, you know, different options, of course, for different research communities.
Okay, I see a raised hand from Kostas Komentaros. So please ask your question.
My question is mostly answered, but no, I would like to see that now there is a clear path other than HPC, which supports for HTC clearly. EOSC, as it stands right now, seems to be quite focused on data and the needs for data, but without any clear mentioning of the cloud part of EOSC, which and the HTC part of cloud that needs to be part of the equation, so that we can actually have a functioning EOSC where we can do the data processing, data analysis on use cases that don't actually need an HPC, which is really expensive to use an HPC for all these use cases. Yes. In that sense, now I think it will be clear if both the work program and also and the SRIA and other, let's say, EOSC documents actually refer to the need for that. That yes. Of the data analysis and HTC need within EOSC, so that the EOSC can operate. It's really nice to have fair data and all this, but this is only one part of the equation.
Exactly.
Thank you, Costa.
Yes, I totally agree. Of course, you know, there's been probably from well, I don't want anybody to feel like an outsider, but if you're not directly involved in the preparations of the governance and everything, you might have the impression that the fair data has been at the center of it, and that's all of it. It might have probably got a little bit more PR because it's something which hasn't been highlighted to that extent in the past, but it's not to say that it's at the expense of the other ones. Of course, you know, the service offer and provision will continue. And so that's clear. I see there actually is a question from Sergio Andreozzi, yes, about the public procurement as an instrument. So, and to say, and he's saying that public institutions usually don't reply to tenders after they have limitations operating in the open market. And that's very clear. And this is why I wanted also to say that please, you know, don't shoot the messenger and please don't shoot the process, because at this moment we are starting to look on how we can deliver. Who could be the tenders? We don't know who they are. Could they be a spin-off of the current ASBL? Could they be could it be industry? Could it be something else? We are looking at this right now, and also starting to have these discussions with the member states representatives in order to really target it to the best possible manner to have this sort of high level, very professional platform delivered. But still, of course, taking into account all the constraints. And these comments that we're having here are actually very, very relevant. So I'm very, so this is why it's you know, me speaking here to EGI audience is of course very important. It's part of the process that we start to actually digging up and seeing, you know, to what extent what can be done by whom. But there is absolutely no final decisions made on this, and we continue the discussion.
Sergio, thank you, Liina. Sergio, has your question been answered, or did you have another question? Sergio?
Yes, no, it has been answered. Just a comment. So this question is being going around when they say this idea of the direct procurement has emerged, because usually the stakeholders in EGI are public funded institutions who usually are very good and very well prepared to prepare tenders to buy, usually when they buy hardware to build infrastructures. Usually they do not participate in an open market to reply to a public tender. Because they have some internal policies or limitations, like usually there's like a 20% limitation for commercial activity. And also they, in other situations, they don't reply for an internal policy to not compete with the open market. So all the discussion is if there's this switch of funding stream, and at the moment, like the EOS core is mainly developed by public funded institutions. Does it mean that if these public funded institutions, they want to continue and say compete to be ready for to reply to the tender, they need to prepare, let's say, a commercial branch, or I mean, the time to be ready is not long.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thank you, Sergio, for this. I mean, the idea is not to force the very obviously, for obvious reasons, these services are funded by public and there are certain limitations to it. You know, the obvious reason here is not to push everything out to the open market and to say, okay, let's see how the industry will apply and provide these services better or cheaper whatsoever. We respect all this, but we want to sort of find a little bit of a hybrid thinking as well, in thinking like, how can we capitalize on the knowledge that is that we don't need to involve the industry at all if this is a problem, but we would like to see then emerging from the publicly funded actors a kind of you know, and then we need to start thinking of, you know, maybe there should be a separate legal entity that could do it on behalf, you know, of course, you know, these publicly funded, and then we could, you know, see how, but you know, there, as I said, Sergio, there is really no final decisions made. It's just to assure you that it's not that we're going to put it out there and it's going to be the hyperscalers of the world that will be providing the services, which actually they do already for now, but just to understand that, you know, we're in process of thinking and we want to start early to see, you know, what is the best way of delivering this, because just because we think that the RIA as an instrument for this type of delivery has come to an end. So we do not think anymore that we can continue this way, even though the results, you know, we still continue to see what's coming out from Ask Future, for example, in terms of an RIA, but of course it's always a little bit more of a hit and miss target. You know, when you have a clear public procurement tender, you know, you put there what needs to be delivered in what time and what are the conditions for acceptance. So it's a bit of different, you know, it's not anymore so much. So therefore we're trying to bridge this, but we're very careful, of course, with all these considerations, as you say, because we know the operational environment of where we are, which is not a market environment to start with, at least, you know, to the point of like
okay. So I want to yes, unless you have a last word, Liina. We are close to
yes, no, I hope, but it's a bit of a short input for the moment, but just to reassure you that this is not the one and only moment, you know, we can talk about this. So over the next year, for sure, you know, there's going to be much more preparations for this, because we're not going to go obviously blindfolded on this endeavor either. So we want to be as prepared as possible, and I would like also all the participants of these stakeholders that are here today to understand that this is a process that will be incremental and will be done in close collaboration with the final users, of course, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Well, thank you for this invitation to think this through more closely. Indeed, the procuring option has raised a lot of discussion, as you have by now noticed. My personal opinion there is that when you want to procure, you don't only need to know if there is a provisioning market. You also need to know that what you actually are going to procure is well defined.
Yes.
So it needs to be on both sides clear before you decide to procure something. With that, I think we should close this very interesting opening session of the EGI conference in the awareness that we have eaten a bit in our coffee break, but unless people say otherwise, I think we have to resume in 5 minutes from now for the next sessions. Thank you again, Liina, for presenting the Commission's view and plans. Thank you, Tiziana, for highlighting the EGI strategy. And with that, I close this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for both for inviting me. And the discussion will continue. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.